Hi, my name is Daisy Carlson, and I am a freshman at Perham High School. I chose this topic because I have a couple teammates and friends who have recently torn their ACLs and are going through rehab right now, and I know exactly what it feels like because I myself in 7th grade tore my ACL, and I know how much tearing your ACL takes a toll on your mental and physical health. So, and most of my teammates and my friends are all women, and I was wondering, why is it only women you usually hear tearing their ACL? So my presentation title is Gender-Specific Injury Prevention in Coaching. Some background on the ACL, or anterior cruciate ligament. So within the last decade, the ACL injury rates have risen almost 150%, and studies aren't completely sure whether that is because of nutrition, sleep, just more girls getting involved in sports. That is something I'm curious on, but this study specifically does not focus on. The ACL is particularly susceptible to injury because it relies heavily, and the ACL is just such a small ligament, and just if you tweak it wrong, it's just so easily to tear it. Female athletes are 2 to 6 times more likely to experience an ACL tear than males. And a lot of the times when women tear their ACL, they are menstruating. And this is because when women are menstruating, their body releases a hormone that loosens their ligaments, because when they are in birth or giving birth to a child, makes it easier when the ligaments are loose. Nearly 50% of these injuries occur through non-contact mechanisms, just as landing wrong or cutting wrong, and this is a big problem because research shows that non-contact injuries can be reduced by 50% when injury prevention is implemented 3 to 5 times a week. So it's quite concerning that this great information is out there, but coaches just aren't taking advantage of it and just using it to their full capability by reducing injuries in their athletes. And however, the injury prevention is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Not everyone is going to see that great results from plyometrics. Some people may need more strength training or dynamic warm-ups before games or practices. One key factor that this study will focus on is gender. My research question is, to what extent are coaches in Minnesota incorporating the correct format of injury prevention for their athletes specific to their gender? The methodology throughout this study was based on gathering a survey that I created on Google Forms, which I sent out to athletic directors throughout the state of Minnesota, who they sent out to their coaches for them to answer. The survey was open for 14 days or 2 weeks. The questions involved in the survey included implementation of injury prevention, gender they coach, sport they coach, types of injury prevention, how they rated their own quality of injury prevention, and if they were educated or how educated they think they were. Surveys were plugged into Google Sheets to be organized from their different tables, and graphs were used to display results from the survey to help just get a better understanding of the information. My hypothesis was, it is hypothesized that majority of coaches in Minnesota who implement injury prevention programs aren't using gender-specific exercises that match with current ACL research. The purpose of this study was to find out if coaches in Minnesota are implementing the correct format of injury prevention for their athletes, specifically focusing on gender-specific exercises by comparing what coaches say they do in practices versus what professionals recommend. This study attempts to find the gaps in injury prevention and decrease the risk of ACL. All in all, I'm just trying to create a healthier and happier environment in sports today. My conclusion of the study showed that there is some big gaps in injury prevention. One of the gaps found was that only 33% of female coaches reported to incorporate plyometrics into practice, which is insane because, as I said before, if you incorporate the correct format of injury prevention into practices, injury rates go down 50%. And plyometrics is specifically important for female athletes because female athletes are known for their poor hip structure and their knees caving in when landing. And to better this skill of not having your knees cave in, You must work on your neuromuscular system. Your neuromuscular system specifically gets worked when doing plyometrics. Your neuromuscular system is like the pathways from your brain to your muscles. Your brain is telling them how to land and how to correct if you're landing or cutting odd. Non-contact injuries can be prevented with plyometrics since it trains your neuromuscular system. In conclusion, this study highlights that there are huge steps to be taken to improve injury prevention in athletes today to create a healthier tomorrow for everyone. Here are some data tables. On the left, this is the education, or if the coaches are informed. In the blue, it is informed. In the red, if they are like partly heard of, partially. And no, as you can see, both male and female athletes are both pretty well educated, but there are still huge steps to be made because this should be 100% informed. And then the graph on the right shows what percent of coaches implement these specific exercises into their practices. And I haven't mentioned this before, but plyometrics is one of the most important because it works in the neuromuscular pathways. And as you can see, males just being right over 37% and women being at 33%. That is a huge gap that I have found in highlighting in this study, and I just want that gap to be shrunk. And that is my main takeaway from this. Thank you for listening to my video, and I hope you have a great day.